everybody, it's Drybear, and we need to talk about Bounty Star, an upcoming new game that is a mix of several different genres that has a lot of really cool and surprising elements that will shock you. Shout out to Annapurna for sponsoring this video. Now, the core gameplay is you in a mech, and you will be able to upgrade your mech, swap out the devices, the modifiers, the coolant systems, as well as the weapons that you use, both ranged and melee, and you can create your own playstyle from that. But outside of the missions where you play in your mech, it has a whole bunch of really cool progression systems, including base building, simulation where you grow crops, you have something to do in between every single mission, and on top of all of that, you also have a fully fleshed out story campaign that you can play through with a main character and voice acting. Now, I'm going to try and avoid any spoilers here. We're not going to talk about the story or the main character, Clem, and everything that happens to her and what she goes through when she tries to progress through the world, but she is an experienced mech pilot with a long history inside of military service. She's also got a fun and kind of gruff personality that really brings her to life in really fun ways, but that's all that I'll say about the story element specifically. Now, since it is an actual story game, you'll be able to unlock all kinds of devices, materials, weapons, and modifiers for your mech that you can bring to each mission, and it all depends on what you're trying to accomplish with that mission, that bounty that you're completing, the enemies you're facing, and what you want to use, as well as what kind of playstyle you want to create. There's shotguns, there's melee weapons, there's ranged rifles, there's pistols, heavy hammers, blades, knuckles, all kinds of things that you can combine together, but it also plays off of the fact that you are piloting a mech, which means that your coolant system matters. If you dash too often or you overheat, you'll see on the top of the screen right now, on the left top is the hit points, but there's also temperature. So what time of day you're going out on these missions on. If it's hot in the afternoon, you're going to have to watch your engine to make sure it doesn't overheat in the middle of battle, but getting too cold isn't a great thing either. And so you have these environmental effects as well as the different modifiers and components you bring inside your mech that make it special. And there's a good healthy mix of types of enemies. There's defensive emplacements that you'll face off against, turrets, mines, things like that. There's other pilots in mechs that are trying to take you out as well as natural alien elements and, you know, flora and fauna that are after you that you kind of combine together in that. And you'll find that most of the time when you're going into a mission, you learn a bunch about what that mission is about and how you could do it better. There's also like long-term stretch goals that you can do with the bounties too that help make it feel interesting, things that you want to complete in the mission based on how fast you complete it and what other things you do while you're farming as well. And yes, not only are there normal enemies, elite enemies, there's also boss enemies as well that you'll face that all have different attacks. You'll find some of the normal 3D action elements like dodging, managing your stamina, managing your heat, but also being able to parry and counter the enemy going in melee versus range. And they have tons of different ways to mix you up as you're trying to win the battle against them. Let's switch gears and talk about the base building / simulation element of the game. It is a story game, so you are a main character that has a personality, and as you go through the story completing bounties, more characters will show up. You'll talk to them, get to know them, help them in their storyline, but as you progress, you'll be continually improving your base and potentially even moving between bases depending on how far into the story you get. And so as you make adjustments, improvements, enhancements to your base, you'll unlock new technologies, new methodologies, and you'll even have the ability to be able to grow your own crops. You can cook food for buffs between missions. You can even create your own crafted materials and parts for your mech to make it stronger and better. So you do a bounty, you come back, you check on your base building, add things to it, make sure your crops are growing nicely, that they're watered properly, you fill up all your refill stations, and you also maintain your mech as well between the combat segments. Now again, to avoid spoilers, we're just here at the very first settlement. We've gotten a little bit of progress on here on this save file, so let's walk through and see what's actually here. This is going to be your main area, and you have your mech station over here as well, so you'll be able to mess around with your mech. You can have all kinds of different weapons and creations that you can add to it. Two support systems, a melee weapon, a ranged weapon, 3 support systems, a trick system, and then augmentations that have various kinds of buffs and effects depending on what it is you're trying to locate. You can also decorate and style your mech with some of the later upgrades you get in the game. You can make your bounties, if they're especially difficult, a little bit easier by coming over and cooking food. They've got a whole list of food here, all with their own ingredients list, as well as creating some cool images that give you buffs and bonuses from that as well. Grilled chicken burritos, egg scrambles, breakfast burritos, all that sort of thing. And you'll be able to either grow your own crops that you can use to make your own food, or there is a marketplace in your settlement that you can actually use to buy materials. So you'll be able to create these boxes. You need to keep track of the water that's on the crops as well and grow them. And then you can either, if you have high quality crops that have high yield, you can just sell these for money and use that money for anything that you want it for, or you can use it for cooking, for buffs in between missions as well. There's all kinds of little bonuses and benefits that give you, ways to maintain your raptor, your mech during combat that you can play around with. And as you progress through the story, more and more of this gets filled out and upgraded, and you also unlock new areas as well that you can utilize for that purpose. And this game really surprised me. It's got a surprising amount of charm to it. The characters and the world that plays out as you go through the story, learning about Clem and her struggles and what she's trying to accomplish and what she's trying to do with her life in general, combined with the 3D action combat of a mech that you pilot and maintain yourself through various base building efforts. The combat starts out relatively simple, but as you start getting new additions, augmentations for your mech, as well as different combinations of weapons and enemies that you run into, it starts becoming, pretty decently involved as you're trying to make sure you have the right mech for the situation. Every setup that you're going to bring on your mech has downsides, either limited dash distance, which some of the enemies have unblockable attacks that you'll have to deal with, or multiple enemies in an area that you'll have to deal with. Sometimes you have to deal with rockets that lock onto your character that you'll have to avoid, or shots that come from a distance, low enemies, large enemies, elite enemies, and other mech pilots, and you're limited on the amount of heals that you can have in a mission up until you get to the very ending point, and bosses that will really test your patience on how you actually engage with them and how you actually win the fight. And as I mentioned, the time of day matters a lot as well, and you can actually progress time as you're managing your crops and doing your base building gameplay. But as you can see that, there's definitely differences between nighttime, in the evening or afternoon when it gets really hot, or like a neutral time of day as well. And this will affect how your mech performs, how the engine reacts to the environment, and the temperatures that you face as well. You'll even find some really kind of like slapstick humor, and the environments are very creative as well, like this baseball field that you'll fight some rebels, some outward gangs on it as well. There's even different approaches that you can take. You can either capture the bounties alive, or you can take them out full sail. And sometimes you'll have a choice between dead or alive, or sometimes you'll have to pick one of them, and you'll have a different approach for capturing versus taking them out specifically. But if you're looking to pick up Bounty Star, it is launching October 23rd, so just about a month from now you can pick it up. It's launching on Steam, Epic Game Store, both consoles, and will be available day one on Game Pass. It's launching with a $24.99 USD price with a launch discount as well if you pick it up when the game first launches. And honestly, I've had a ton of fun with this game, and I can't wait to see the full playthrough as people get to experience it themselves, and I hope that you found it interesting as well. Because to be honest, we don't really get games like this all that often, so it's a nice treat when we actually do. Now, before I go, I want to leave you with a couple tips and tricks that I learned while playing through Bounty Star that I think will help a lot if you're brand new and just starting with the game from the beginning. First of all, the game runs on the curios that you'll collect, the main currency. This is used for upgrading, repairing, refueling, rearming, buying components, buying materials for crafting, cooking, everything. And so you really want to pay attention to your curio count, and also just kind of covet it a little bit, because oftentimes I would end up buying too much from the marketplace and then needing it for something else. So here are a couple tips around managing the amount of curio that you have. Firstly, when you're in a mission, it is not completely devoid of attrition. And what I mean by that is you will have fees that you pay for damage that your mech takes. You have repair costs. Additionally, you also will pay for your ammunition as well. This is to prevent you from sitting at the edge of the map and just sniping everyone. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to be walk on eggshells, but you do want to be careful about the amount of damage that you take and how often you're firing your firearm versus using your melee weapon, because that can add up at the end of a mission when you have to pay those costs up front. Now, as you see on the top left corner, when you start a bounty, you will sometimes get the option to make more money by capturing them using the capture device. This one, depending on your platform, will be a secondary fire mode that you'll be able to use to fire out a golden lasso, and be able to capture the target. You'll usually get benefits for doing this, especially if there's little humans walking around with their measly little pistols. You can capture them instead of taking them outright. And the bosses and enemies you face, sometimes you can see in the top left corner, it says wanted dead or alive. You get additional curio if you're able to capture them alive. Additionally, there are also optional goals for every mission. You won't always be able to get these right from the jump just because it might require specialty tools or components or weapons, or there might be some things inside of the mission that you will have to struggle to get. Sometimes it's a time trial, completing it in just the right amount of time. Sometimes it's fighting items or collecting things, or sometimes it's destroying all of the eggs that an enemy alien species is inhabiting in that area. So paying close attention to those and also keeping up with them will give you a good flow of income that will allow you to craft, build, repair, and upgrade as you see fit. But that's not all. As you go through your missions, you don't always want to leave them right away because the mission area is a little bit bigger than just the mission target that you have. You'll often find destructibles that you can destroy to get bonus curios. You'll also find chests and hidden stashes throughout these areas as well. And oftentimes when you finish the mission or the bounty, you want to spend a little bit of time walking around and exploring, as you might find secrets, bonuses, all kinds of things. Not only will you get currency from this as well, curios, but you can also find components, rare parts, new weapons, just random drops that you'll find in chests and on the ground as well that can be hugely valuable in your progression through the game. And when I just say destruction, I actually mean it. You'll notice that when your mech walks over, walls, fences, vehicles, things like that, and you destroy them, small amounts of curio will pop out of these as well. So you can actually make a habit out of running over fences, grabbing the curio as you go, make sure you collect it. You can see like this is actually a decent amount here. You can find an extra 500 to 2,000 curios just by walking over fences and grabbing them. The extra loot will either be better gear or you will find more curios as well. And so you can take a 3,000 to 5,000 curio bounty and turn that into 10,000 curio if you're careful and explore the whole area and collect what is there. Another big tip I have is sometimes when you do a bounty, it will ask you to have a very specific loadout in order to get the benefit for it. When you have the bounty selected, so if you come up here to the bounty board and you actually, select this and look at the bounty, sometimes it'll say use only the specified loadout. So when you select this and accept it, I had this kind of built up here, you'll be able to get this here. When you go over to your mech to select your loadout for the bounty, you'll notice on the left side of the screen there is a subtask list here as well. And this will tell you that it's asking you to use a very specific loadout in order to get the bonus value, which oftentimes can be very good. So when I actually put on the big hammer that's asking me to use and the blue coolant system, the cryogents, it'll light up. Now it wants me to use this one over here. When I activate that, now I've got the whole loadout here and I will get the bonus reward for finishing that objective as well. However, you won't always have the full list of items that you need to finish the specialty loadout for that bounty. However, usually when you get those, the items that you need will either be craftable from the materials you find in the market, or they'll just be straight purchasable from the market as well. So you can notice that when you come over here and you look at the market, you can find domestic, combat, and scraps. Come over to combat and find this. You can see there's even like a blade here, like a bolt sword that you can use, a grenade launcher, things like that. So what I usually like to do, and a tip that I give for you if you're just starting out, is hold on to a little bit of a war chest, a stockpile of curios. Don't blow your currency right away, because sometimes you'll go over to the bounty board for that day and you'll get a couple missions that line up on here, but you might find one that asks you to specified loadout. That loadout may include new items or weapons you don't currently have, but when you accept the bounty, they'll show up on the marketplace. So by holding on to an extra 6 to 10,000 curios, you can then say if the mission says, hey, use grenade launcher and grind sword, you can come over here and spend about 6650 curios, buy both those items, equip them, and you're good to go. Or maybe you have to actually buy a blueprint and then come over here and actually craft the item to equip it. And by holding on to extra curios for this, you'll actually be able to get that objective completed when you first get the bounty instead of having to return to it or do it differently. So that's Bounty Star in a nutshell. I had a blast playing this game and I hope you do too. Let me know what you think about the game down below in the comments. Again, releasing on October 23rd. Be sure to wishlist it on your favorite platform and look out for the game's release next month. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.